am going to show you how I pick out plants. Well, not me picking them out, but I'm going to show you the plants that I got on clearance at Lowe's. And I'm going to give you a few tips on how I get plants on a budget. Personally, I buy a lot of plants, and I like to try to keep myself in some sort of a limit. So I tend to not buy plants that are too expensive, so that way it kind of limits how many I can get and the sizes of the plants that I can get, so I don't get too many. It just makes it to where I have to be more picky about the kinds of plants that I can get, so that way I don't overwhelm my house with plants too quickly, because then it kind of just gets a little disorganized sometimes. So the other day I went to Lowe's, and which is personally my favorite place to get plants on clearance. My favorite place to get plants is actually at Sprouts. It's a grocery store. Anyways, a lot of grocery stores have them, but Sprouts tends to, like, they have them for $12 or less usually. And so I get really neat plants for, you know, that's a decent price for a pretty good sized plant. Like, I just got this one, so it has a little bit of leaf burn from transitioning over to my house, but I just got this one. It's in a, you know, not too big of a can, but I think actually this was $6 when I got it, because it just was, they put it half off just because they'd had it for a little while. So they also tend to have plants for, like, good sized succulents that'll be for, you know, $4. That's like a pack of them that's like has 4 succulents in them usually. And then they also, the arrangements that you see of succulents that, you know, you can usually find at Walmart and Lowe's and Home Depot, all those places, they usually have them for a couple to a few dollars cheaper, just depending. So also their air plants are cheaper there, that you can, you know, buy the same kinds of air plants everywhere else. It's just they're usually a bit cheaper at Sprouts. Sprouts also has really good clearance on things like, I just got this air plant for $1 the other day, and also this air plant for $1 the other day too. So I did take out a bunch of this weird orange moss because I didn't like it, and I put in some white reindeer moss. But I really liked how it was coming out the top. I also like to go to Lowe's because they have the best prices in my area for clearance. I don't normally find them like at Home Depot on clearance for very good prices, because I don't know, they hardly ever have them on clearance there in the first place. I don't know why. Maybe just other people snatch them up before before they even have any left. So what I do is, when I'm looking for them, I want to make sure that there is new growth and that the new growth is healthy. Even when I'm buying plants that aren't on sale, that, you know, they're just in normal areas, then I still make sure that the new growth is healthy and not dying. Sometimes it's just dying because it's not in an ideal environment, but if the leaves are all dying on the, you know, the older growth is all dying and the new growth is dying, then you don't go after those ones, because you want it to still be robust and still have a good chance. Because oftentimes when they're there for so long, then they haven't been getting adequate light, and they're just going to be really struggling, and they're going to be more prone to disease and like pests. So like spider mites and fungus gnats, kinds of things that you don't really want in your house and to be bringing into your other plants. So like, I had a plant that had been struggling that I finally put outside, and I've just brought it back in because I think it's done with all of its problems, but it had caused just tons of fungus gnats over here in this area that I had to completely repot everything just to get rid of it. Sometimes you just gotta live and learn. I have found a lot of excellent plants. Like, oftentimes there'll be some that they've had for a while and they just haven't sold, so they put them in the clearance section, and they're still very healthy. And those plants are, you know, a few dollars cheaper. They're not quite as, you know, inexpensive as the other ones. They're not quite as marked down as the other ones are, but you can still get some really nice, decent plants for good prices. So like, they had some pretty big peace lilies that were perfectly healthy for only $10, and they were nice, good sizes. So I'm going to show you with this aloe. when they have moss on top, you want to kind of peel it back a little bit so that way you can kind of see the bottom of it. And if it has any smushy squishiness, don't buy that. But see how healthy this is still? That's perfectly healthy down there. And you can look in and see if there's any rotting on the center, like inside. You want to check that out too, on especially succulents, because those are prone to rotting. When I'm looking at something like this, I want to look to see if there's any new growth at the bottom, but there's no new growth on the bottom of this one yet. I've had some new growth on it, but some of that has died, and that happens sometimes. I'm not very good at keeping ivies alive in the first place, so this has been a little bit problematic for me.
Even that's moving.
But you can see there's some new growth here, and when you look along, there's a lot of new growth. So I've had this for over a month, and it's been growing, and it's doing okay. And all this is new, like this is new, and this has been growing a lot. So I might get this to actually survive, but if I was going to be buying this in the store, I would want to make sure that there is some new growth down at the bottom too before I take a chance on this. When you're buying something that has a lot of foliage like this one, then you want to look underneath and see if there's any bugs, and you want to you can pull it back a little bit to see, especially at the roots and stuff, if there's any rotting or any especially bugs down there. If it's crispy like this, that just means that it needs some more humidity, and it will be just fine. Okay, so here's an example of some succulents that are okay. They just look like, see that leaf right there? That is a squishy rotting leaf because it's just broken and it's just taking its time rotting off. The ones that you want to stay away from, it will be rotting down at the stem. But these are just fine. I just wanted to show you really quick, my cactus is blooming and it's beautiful. It's very, very happy. Okay, so the plants I actually got. So I got the split leaf philodendron, and this is a split leaf philodendron. I did look it up to make sure. All these Monstera deliciosa pictures were coming up and people trying to tell you that that's a split leaf philodendron, and it's not. I don't know, just because people call it that, they just insist that it is, but it's not. So when picking out this plant, you can see there's a lot of leaves that are all dried and some newer ones that aren't very happy, but there's also some new ones that are extremely happy, and they're glossy and glowing, and there's a lot of new growth at the bottom, and so you can see leaves that are getting ready to unfurl. But you just want to make sure that there's lots of good healthy growth. And even though these old leaves aren't as happy, but they're still strong and there's no rotting. You can see a little bit of old dead leaves from like encasing the new leaf and stuff, but there's no bugs down here. Sometimes when there's a lot of dead leaves at the bottom, then they can be more prone to bugs. But that's not the case for this one. It's still very healthy. This plant, which was regularly $15, which is a good price for this plant, I got it for only $5. So I figure for my plant not looking as incredible for, maybe a week or two, maybe a month, having it for a third of the price is good with me. And plus it's really neat, and I've been wanting a plant over in this corner. Something that I didn't get on clearance, of course, because they're just terracotta pots, were these really neat sized pots. I really like them. I like the shape of them, and just they're a little bit more modern. That is something that I do get on clearance sometimes though, because a plant will die and the pot is actually a nice pot, whether it's terracotta or ceramic. They will put those and mark them down, so I get nice terracotta pots for only 50 cents. Here's a good example of a plant that might not make it. We just got this the other day. It was $3 because it has the pot and the plant. We bought it actually for the pot because it's like this cool copper and it has drainage on the bottom. So this plant was regularly $15 because it was, has a cool pot and it had more succulents in it. But this still has 2 succulents and it has some new growth. So the only thing is that this does have some bugs in it. So I have it outside right now, and I'm trying to see if if this will do okay. I'll just take this plant out and put it in a smaller terracotta pot, and then I'll have this neat pot to use. The other thing that we got the other day was actually some plants that are for outdoors. We got these 3 hostas, and I have 2 of them already that I have planted that that I had gotten for $3 a couple weeks ago, but they had them discounted even more for only $1. They are a little worse for wear on some parts, but they are still very healthy and happy, and so once I get them in the ground, then they can have a chance to root in before it freezes, and so then hopefully we'll have them come back next spring. But you know, I got 3 of them for the same price as one of them last time I went there, so I think that's a pretty good deal to try to see if they will do good. Any plant that I get and I bring home, I try to plant it as soon as I possibly can in either a ceramic or a terracotta pot. I like to get them out of their plastic cans because they don't like those so much. They don't do as well in them. The roots can't breathe and it holds in too much moisture. So when you can get them into some other kind of a pot, the sooner the better. Sometimes I leave them in their nursery cans for a little bit longer if there's a lot of holes on the bottom and if the plant is still very healthy and doesn't need to be transplanted yet. But also something to keep in mind is if it has a small root structure, don't plant it in too big of a pot yet. Sometimes when you get a plant, like say my rubber tree plant was, you know, it was a good size when I got it, but I planted it in a pot that was too big for it. But what happened was instead of struggling, it got huge really fast. And if that's something you want, then go for it, for a plant that will get big. So like any kind of a tree type of plant generally will do that, but other kinds of plants, they like to be more root bound. So like your African violets, for example, definitely don't put that in too big of a pot yet. I'll talk to you guys next week, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, then please give it a thumbs up. And if you want more plant videos, natural living tips, and natural DIYs, and the like, then please do subscribe. Next week, I'm thinking I'm going to do a video on either my favorite houseplants for beginners, or because my list is a little bit different. So you might be kind of surprised on some of the plants that I choose. Or maybe I was thinking about doing something on how to go non-toxic in your home for beginners, something like that. So anyways, I hope you guys have a really great week. Bye!